Good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Roxy coming at you live from Palm Beach in Florida. It is Friday. It is January the 6th. This is my first video of 2023. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you, like I did, managed to spend some time with your family and your friends and loved ones and enjoyed a little break over the holiday period. If not, back to the grind. And if you were working all the way through, thank you for whatever it is that you do in order to keep the economy ticking. This particular video that I'm going to share with you today is not really the video I wanted to make at the start of the new year, but then at the same time, this is the video which most people are talking about, not so much the video or my video per se, but Petrobras is one of the most searched for companies or equities in the marketplace today on almost every financial website, including search engines like Yahoo and Google. The top ticker symbol searched for right now is Petrobras. So I thought I would spend a little bit of time talking about the valuation of Petrobras and how we arrive at a decision whether to invest or not. So this is not my typical video. It's more a combination of a little bit of news. And then I'm going to talk about the actual valuation process as it relates in this particular instance to Petrobras. And then I'll close it off with a couple of $10 stocks that you could potentially look at buying and the video that I actually wanted to make for the start of the new year. So what's in the news? Petrobras appoints an interim head until the incoming CEO is approved. Now, if you really think about that carefully, that means there was an existing CEO. Now there's an interim head, and there'll be an incoming CEO within the next few weeks or so. So that's 3 leadership changes in the space of 1 month. Now, if you think that's unusual for Petrobras, it actually isn't, because in Bolsonaro's final year as president of Brazil, I think he had appointed 3, maybe 4 CEOs in quick succession. And so this is not unusual for Petrobras at all. But anyway, it's change, right? And as a general rule, the market doesn't like change. After the early departure of CEO Andrade, PBR, so Petrobras, named the production head Rittershausen, and please forgive me if I screw up some of these names, as interim CEO. Andrade was appointed by Bolsonaro, and he stepped down before the end of his term in April. It's to be expected, because he'd probably be fired anyway by the incoming president, Lula. Senator Jean-Paul, maybe this is Prates or Prates, I'm not sure, so I'll go with Prates, has been appointed by President Lula to head the state-controlled company, and he'll take over from Rittershausen, which sounds very German, once he is approved internally at Petrobras. So even though Lula is the president and it's a state-controlled company, we still need approval internally at Petrobras, but I guess that would be just a formality. The new guy says he assumes to take on his new role by mid-January, which is just a week away. Continuing on that same vein, these are quotes from the incoming CEO, which you want to probably pay attention to if you are an investor and long in Petrobras, PBR or PBR.A, which is the preferreds. I see Petrobras, he said, as a company that needs to look to the future and invest in the energy transition to meet the needs of the country, the planet, and society. It's all this green stuff, right? You almost expect him to say that, because pretty much every other CEO of every energy company is saying it also, because otherwise they get on the wrong side of the prevailing political narrative. In addition to the long-term interests of the shareholders. So the last sentence in that particular top paragraph is the one that is of interest to us. He basically says we need to invest in energy transition in addition to meet the long-term interests of the shareholders, which includes people like me. In a December press conference just a few weeks ago, he said, quote, Petrobras is a company for the long run, and we cannot just keep exploring subsalt oil and paying dividends, right? So here's giving you 2 clues. Firstly, he says we need to act in the long-term interests of the shareholders. So if you are a short-term shareholder, or if you're day trading, that excludes you. And then he makes reference to the fact that we cannot simply keep paying dividends. Now, that doesn't mean they don't want to pay dividends at all, but you cannot just keep exploring subsalt oil and paying dividends. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dividend cut. To be fair, if they cut the dividend in half, you would still be making or earning approximately $3 on a $10 share. So that ain't half bad. He added, quote, the new government does not plan to intervene in the setting of fuel prices, which of course is something that Bolsonaro had requested in the lead up to the election because he thought lower fuel prices would help him win re-election. He does not plan to change the company's pricing policy, but does not intend to unlink its fuel prices from those of international markets. Rather, he said, we want to, quote, unlink them from import parity. So those are some of the statements that he made. None of them are surprising. None of them are particularly scary. The only thing that we may want to sort of pay attention to is the dividends. If you're in Petrobras just for the dividend, then you need to pay special attention to the dividend. If you're in Petrobras because you believe it's cheap at the current price at around $10, then that's a different narrative and investment thesis. PBR is currently, as I said at the opening of the video, on Zacks list of the most searched stocks. Over the past month, Petrobras has returned negative 12.4. Now, if that concerns you, because, for example, versus the S&P 500 pulled back 5.3%, if the 12.4 concerns you specific to Petrobras, it shouldn't, because during that same period, the oil and gas integrated emerging markets industry, which Petrobras is part of, returned negative 12.6. So Petrobras is actually doing pretty much the same as all the other oil and gas integrated emerging markets, energy stocks specifically. Well, what's the future direction? So there's a lot of market media rumors and press releases and stuff. People writing things, people who write for a penny a click, like on Seeking Alpha, they want you to click on the article, so they'll try a catchy headline and hope that you click on the article so they can earn a penny or two. And they write all kinds of stuff. Most of it is just opinions. It's not really based in fundamentals or facts. But every now and then you find a diamond in the rough and you get a really, really good article to read. But they're tough to find because there's so much volume of stuff, right? But you can always look at the fundamental facts, because at the end of the day, that should dominate your buy and hold decision making, assuming you buy and hold. What's the present value versus the fair value? So what I've done here is I'm giving you sort of a high-level overview of how we want to look at these stocks. The present value of a corporation's future stream of earnings determines the fair value for its stock. I'll just repeat that quickly. So the present value of a corporation's future stream of earnings determines the fair value for its stock. One of the reasons why I phrased that statement in this manner is because one of the most common valuation tools is the discounted cash flow. And the discounted cash flow is effectively taking the future cash flow and translating it into a valuation today. Unfortunately, it's filled with assumptions, and the more assumptions you make, the more chance there are that you're going to get something wrong. So none of these things are fact, but at least it gives you an idea. Unfortunately, once again, or part two, you have to estimate or guess the future stream of earnings because we don't know, right? Nobody knows, including the analysts who study this all day long, even if Petrobras is the only stock that they study. Whether we like it or not, if the earnings estimates, so if the analysts publish their earnings estimates and they go up, the fair value of the stock very frequently follows, right? So if an analyst, especially a well-respected analyst, increases his earnings estimate, very often the fair value of the stock goes up as well. And that higher fair value than the market price drives the investor's interest in buying the stock. So that correlation exists whether we like it or not. And that's why I phrase it that way. The analysts play a huge part in helping us to make a decision as to whether the stock is fairly valued, undervalued, or overvalued. Now, Petrobras specifically is expected to post earnings of $1.08 per share for the current quarter, which would be a year-over-year change of over 66%. The consensus earnings for the full fiscal year 2023, and remember, this is a really, you could say it's a well-educated guess, but at the end of the day, it's very difficult to imagine today in January what the entire fiscal year 2023 looks like, because you are going to get it wrong. Imagine if you had published your consensus estimate for earnings at the beginning of 2020, and 3 months later, a global pandemic broke out, and effectively your estimate, whatever happened to it, happened, right? We know what happened in 2020. The consensus earnings estimate, so this is the let's call it the educated guess for the entire year, of $5.57, points to a change of 134% from the prior year. So earnings is expected to increase by over 100%. Over the past month, this earnings estimate has changed 0.5. So not material, it's just gone down a smidge. And for fiscal year 2024, if you're really brave, the earnings estimate is $3.93, which would indicate a change of negative 29% over the previous year, which is the year that we're currently in. This is way too far in the future for me. In fact, I'm quite comfortable working on an earnings estimate, perhaps for the next quarter, or perhaps two. And even then, if I go for 2 quarters, I still get it wrong, right? So over the past year, the earnings estimate for 2024 has also changed 0.5%. I expect that one to change in the future anyway. And I think Petrobras can definitely come in with earnings for fiscal year 2023 at between $5 and $6, so probably not too far off. How about the revenue forecast? Because at the end of the day, if you don't grow your revenue, you can't grow your earnings. Doesn't matter what you do. It's very difficult to grow your earnings if you don't grow your revenue. Earnings growth is arguably the best indicator of financial health because nothing will happen if you can't raise revenues. It's almost impossible for a company to grow its earnings without growing its revenue for a long period. Current quarter consensus sales estimates are approximately $32 billion, which is a year-over-year increase of 32%. And the current fiscal year 2023 consensus estimate for the full year is $125.25 billion, and then a little bit less than that in 2024. But as I said, we don't know, right? So if Petrobras comes in with revenue of $125 billion or thereabout this year, they are up nearly 50% over the previous year. Now, how about the reported history and surprises? Now, the history obviously does not indicate to you what's going to happen in the future, but at least gives you an indication of what happened in the past, which gives you something, at least a sense of guidance in terms of what you might expect. Petrobras reported revenues of $32.4 billion in the last quarter, which was a year-over-year increase of almost 40%, and its earnings per share was 52 cents for that same quarter in the previous year, but this year, in the last quarter, they came in at $1.35. The consensus estimate was $32.54 billion, and the earnings surprise 2.27 greater. So now, if you look at the revenue, it's a beat. And if you look at the earnings per share, it was a negative surprise, right? So everybody expected the earnings per share to come in slightly higher, but it came in slightly lower. In the last 4 quarters, Petrobras surpassed the consensus earnings per share estimate 3 times, but top revenue estimates only once for the period. See how tough it is? Very, very difficult. How about the valuation? So investment decisions generally require a considerable valuation. Now, if you've been following my videos, you'll know that I always take a snapshot, at least at the start of the equity that I'm reviewing. And I did this in this instance as well. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. And then we look at some of the ratios, right? And you've heard me talk about this often. I talk about the price earnings ratio, price to book or price to sales, price to cash flow. I talk about the quick ratio, the current ratio, etc. I look at these things and then decide whether the stock is fairly valued or not. Now, if you compare the valuation multiples to the company's own historical values, in other words, if I compare Petrobras's price earnings ratio, PE ratio, with Petrobras's PE ratio of, let's say, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or whatever, it helps me to ascertain if the company is fairly valued, overvalued, or undervalued. And if I compare those same ratios, whichever ratios I'm using, to its peers, in other words, other super majors, so BP, Shell, Exxon, Chevron, etc., that helps me to figure out how reasonable the stock price is compared to the others. On any metric that you use right now, and if you feel differently or if you think this is incorrect, please educate us all and tell us why in the comments. But if you feel, based on any available metric and fundamentals of Petrobras, that Petrobras is not trading at a discount to its peers, then let us know why you think that and what it is that you think it should be trading at. Right now, I am fairly confident in terms of saying Petrobras is the least expensive super major stock that you can buy in the market today. So here is that snapshot. So when you look at Petrobras, you can currently buy it for $10 a share. It's a $66 billion company. It's got positive earnings. It's got a PE ratio of only 2, which is ridiculously low, right? Remember, I've said many times before, the S&P 500 average PE is about 15, currently is about 14 or thereabouts. So if you can buy a stock for less than 14 or 15 or thereabout, it indicates to you that this stock is relatively cheap compared to the entire market, for instance. So in this case, I'm comparing it to the benchmark and not the energy index. So when I say the average PE ratio is 14 or 15, I'm talking about the S&P 500 and not the energy index specifically. Of course, it pays a huge dividend. As I said at the beginning of this video, I would not be too surprised if this is cut. It's very difficult to justify paying a $6.45 yield on a $10 stock. I mean, that is just extraordinary. And they've been paying it. I mean, we received the last payment last month, and we've got another payment coming up in just a couple of weeks from now on, I think it's January 26th. It's cheap at $10. It hit a low of $8.88. Some people timed it well and actually bought some. I picked up some more Petrobras at $9.26 a short while ago. So, yeah, you know, it doesn't matter what you look at here. It's cheap. Another indicator right at the bottom in the middle of the screen, short interest, 2.81. Less than 3% of the entire float is shorted right now. So there are not a lot of people confident that this is going to pull back. Let's look at the valuation analysis very quickly compared to its peers. In other words, here we're looking specifically at the oil, gas, and consumable fuels industry. And because Petrobras has positive earnings, the price to earnings and price to book ratios are the most appropriate valuation measures. Price earnings for Petrobras is, as I said, less than 2. The industry is currently sitting at around 8. The entire industry is cheap. I have been buying other energy stocks as well, including Blackstone Minerals and Devon Energy, in addition to Petrobras. And if you look at the price to book, for the most recent quarter, the industry was at 4.5 and Petrobras at 0.92, so less than 1. Now, this is the video that I'm going to make next. Well, I hope I'm going to make it next, unless something extraordinary happens in between, you know, like Berkshire Hathaway acquires Occidental Petroleum or something, then I'll probably make that video. But otherwise, I'll be making this video because these are two $10 stocks that you could potentially buy. And if you are thinking of buying one or the other, I think we could spend a little bit of time comparing Ecopetrol from Colombia to Petrobras in Brazil. They're both effectively on sale at $10. They both pulled back sharply. You can see on the graph below that they both have taken a bit of a hit as the market pulled back. But anyway, that is the actual video that I want to do, and that was actually going to be my welcome to the new year and welcome to 2023 video. You know, battle of the two South American super giants, Ecopetrol and Petrobras. But anyway, that will have to wait a couple of days. In the meantime, I hope this was useful to you and interesting. And thank you for watching. I hope to read your comments and get a conversation going. And I'll be back soon with more.